Welcome to a special edition of Altitude Advantage. It's the off season, so we're going to give you guys more bite-sized episodes and analysis as we count the days to training camp. In this episode, we're going to give you some key dates to look out for, more information about open practices during training camp, and really dive into how the shift in culture is going to help this Broncos team to a fast start in 2025. But looking ahead, the Broncos rookie class will report to training camp on Wednesday, July 16th, and the team's veterans will report on July 22nd. The Broncos have announced their training camp schedule, and the first open practice is July 25th. There will be 13 open practices, so we're really excited to get that going. I'm really excited to see the fans back. I know there's a lot of other key dates that we're going to mention right now, but first, let's just start with that, having the fans back for those open practices.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the Broncos announced the training camp schedule, 13 practices, among the most in the NFL. I would say important this year for everyone to go and kind of check out our article on denverbroncos.com with the specifics about training camp attendance. There is going to be a capacity this year, given the construction that's going on in building this new building that if you are out at training camp, you'll see is rapidly rising and is getting closer and closer every day to completion. But it'll look a little bit different because that hillside where everybody used to sit, it's not there anymore. So lots of details about training camp. You mentioned the first open practice on that Friday. They're still back together weekend on that Saturday, a home joint practice against the Arizona Cardinals. So lots to look forward to, but definitely go and check out the details on denverbroncos.com about how to be able to attend. Yeah,
I think a lot of fans are going to get here and be surprised of just how much different everything looks and how the completion of the new building is coming along. I think it's fun when fans kind of get that inside look and obviously get to participate in the practices. Obviously, the Broncos also will visit the San Francisco 49ers for a joint practice on Thursday, August 7th, ahead of their Week 1 preseason game. And as you mentioned, they will host the Cardinals for a joint practice on August 14th before that Week 2 preseason game. So all those key dates aside, obviously, Broncos country, really excited to see you back out here. So make sure you, again, write down all those dates, hit rewind. But the purpose of these special episodes is to really kind of give fans a bite-sized, analysis of what we think is to come for the upcoming season and training camp and all those good things. So the Broncos finished the season strong, made the playoffs, all that good stuff. When you have that motivation and you have, you made it to the playoffs, but now for some of the players, like, they got a taste of it, and now they want more. And I feel like that's really translated over into the offseason that can hopefully translate into the regular season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you listen to Sean Payton at the end of the offseason program, he talked about a couple things that will determine if the Broncos are successful this year. One of them is stringing wins together. The Broncos the last couple of years have had some win streaks, got to keep that going. But the other thing he mentioned is starting fast. And I think we're going to talk about several different topics here on the podcast the next few weeks. We're going to have a countdown to camp series on video where we touch on a bunch of different things. But this is one of the key determining factors, I think, of this season is, can the Broncos start faster? Obviously, 0-2 last year, 1-5 the year before that. In both situations, last year, rally, make the playoffs. Yeah. Year before that, I think got it back to 7-6. Ultimately, were unable to make the postseason, but rebounded well from that tough start. But I think when you consider the AFC West and how competitive we expect it's going to be with Kansas City, who obviously won 2 Super Bowls in a row and then went to this past one, the Chargers, who were a postseason team a year ago, the Raiders, who now have Pete Carroll and Geno Smith and will probably look much more competitive than they were a season ago. This is going to be a all-out brawl, I think, in terms of who wins this division title, who is there. And so it is critically important, and I think this part of why Sean Payton mentioned this, is critically important for the Broncos to start fast so that you're not chasing another team all season. And that you can say, hey, we're ahead in the division early in the season, or maybe we're neck and neck, and maybe when you play Kansas City midway through the season, like, is that to take the lead in the division, where instead of, even during last year's postseason run, like, you're always chasing Kansas City, and that was in part because they didn't lose a game right until late in the year. But so one, you've got to hope that some other teams do their job when they play teams like Kansas City, but
do your job.
It's important that you are ready to go, because when you look at the early season schedule against Tennessee, and a rookie quarterback in Cam Ward that'll probably make his first career start against a really talented Denver defense. And then, we'll see what happens in Indianapolis, but you've got Daniel Jones there with a new team, maybe still getting used to his teammates. And then you've got three, I would say, really tough challenges, and not that those are not tough, but like you go on the road to face a division rival, then you face an MVP caliber quarterback in Joe Burrow at home, and then you go and face the defending champions on the road.
Yeah.
So I look at that stretch and I think, man, you got to find a way to get a few wins here so that you can be in the mix as you're going into the next stretch of the season. And it, you never want to call anything a must win in June or July, right? But I do think if you're the Broncos and you want to send a message, not just to yourselves, but to the rest of the division that you're ready to compete, you've got to start off fast here. And, you can't have an 0-2 or a 1-5 start. Like, you got to be ready to go and start stacking those wins because you don't know how many you're going to need and you don't know which one's going to matter at the end of the year.
Yeah, and I think the importance of just starting off the brand new season at home in front of Broncos country against potentially the number 1 overall pick. The Broncos were 6-2 at home last season, and we clearly saw how much of an advantage that was, and the players really talked about how they want to make, the stance at home where it's like you come in, you're not expected to win. Like, we are going to win. And I think protecting that home field advantage is very important. But the growing pains of all that, right? Because I feel like this season, Jaleel McLaughlin and Marvin Mims Jr. spoke a little bit about how those losses and those moments really kind of influenced them to say, you know what, this offseason, there's no downtime. A lot of guys were here. They talked about being here. And I think that's really important, especially as they see, like, this time, every day is we have to work, because the mindset that Sean Payton has really put on these guys is it's a brand new slate. Yes, we did amazing things. Yes, we can build on that internally. But from a football schedule perspective, we are starting from zero. And we cannot repeat these same mistakes. And we have to string together 5-6 game winning streaks. And, if you get a loss in there, okay, it happens, but it's not detrimental to where you want to go.
Yeah, and I think you hit on a good point there, because I just said, hey, you've got to start fast, right? Okay, well, then the obvious question is how? How do you start
Give
fast,
us the
right?
answers.
And I think there's two things that stand out to me. One, just from a mentality standpoint, it was very clear in the locker room in Buffalo that these guys were not. It wasn't like, oh, great, we made the playoffs. That was a great step. Like, I think guys the next day
there was
had
no
that
satisfaction there. I felt like.
I think guys the next day, as they cleaned out their lockers, had that awareness and that perspective. But, like, I remember listening to Zach Allen talk after the game, and, like, he was mad, right? And, like, they expected to go in there and win that game. And then Sean Payton talked a few days later about, hey, if we win that game, we feel decent about our chances to go on a little run here. And so I think you're right. They got that taste, and they've let that moment fuel them. And listen, I know that game got out of hand, but I also think until midway through the third quarter, late in the third quarter, when Josh Allen has that long touchdown throw, it's still a one-possession game. Like, you're in that football game, and I think the Broncos felt like, man, maybe we didn't take advantage of the opportunities we had. And so you're right. I think, one, it's a mentality thing. And I think number two, and even more importantly, is that, 2023 aside, when they started 1-5, like, that was a different quarterback, so I view it as less relevant maybe. Last year's slow start, you had a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. The first 3 or 4 weeks, he's figuring things out. It's his first NFL action. You are going to get a Bo Nix that is light years ahead of where he was in week 1 last season. And that doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to win. It doesn't mean that he's guaranteed to play perfectly, right? But what I do know is that week 1 against the Titans, that game is going to feel so much slower for him. He's going to see everything better. He's going to have just a complete and total shift in terms of the grasp of the offense than he did week 1 last season. Mm-hmm. And so if you look at this offense that in Seattle last year, if you remember, had a bunch of chances to score a bunch of points and couldn't quite get there, I just feel much better about their ability to convert on those chances, especially you return a lot of the same guys skill position-wise. And then the same is true on the defensive side of the ball, where another year under this system with a lot of the same guys, obviously you're going to be integrating some new pieces in Hufanga and Greenlaw. But all said, like, this is a defense that knows how to play together, knows what to do. I think they're going to pick up where they left off. And the fact that there's not going to be that transition period makes me feel confident that they can parlay this into a fast start.
Yeah, the continuity I feel like you're going to get from a lot of these guys and is going to be really helpful. And a lot of the guys have spoke about it. Like, we're coming in, we're working out together, we're vacationing together. All that is very important, like to build all that camaraderie off the field, because you see that relationship grow, especially with Marvin Mims and Bo Nix, especially during OTAs and minicamp. You saw them kind of get on the same page, talk to each other, communicate, because a lot of it is like your body language. Like, are you going to be where I think you're going to be? Am I going to Zen master you? And you're just going to know exactly where I need you to be. And you saw a lot of flashes of that between Mims and Bo Nix, specifically towards the end of the season. It's really exciting to see how this team is building that camaraderie on the defensive side and the offensive side. And to see it translate once training camp hits, I think that's when you're really going to have a really good glimpse of what you're going to get week 1.
Absolutely. And listen, you look at the schedule down the stretch, there's some exciting games, whether it's the primetime game in Washington, at Kansas City on Christmas, home against the Chargers to end the year. But for those to matter, for those to have as much possible meaning as they can, you've got to start strong. You got to put yourself in position. And listen, this team has been the hot team to talk about all offseason. There are a lot of people's kind of up and coming pick to do big things this year. Go out there, show it early, start fast. It's a key element to this season.
Well, there you have it, Broncos country. And make sure you guys comment below. Let us know what you think are the keys to a fast start for the Broncos in 2025. And we look forward to seeing you guys at the open practices once training camp gets underway. Now, remember, these are your bite-sized podcast versions of Altitude Advantage. And we're going to have a lot more coming up, so make sure you don't go anywhere.